One of the interesting incidents is in the last 2 years of her of her tenure as district attorney, she was embroiled in a major scandal involving the systematic violation of criminal defendants' rights. And in San Francisco, in the drug lab, there was a drug technician who was supposed to test the drugs. And this person was sampling the drugs, taking them home and sampling them and also making numerous errors. This was an open secret in the district attorney's office. So after, people mentioned it on numerous occasions, judges chastised the district attorney's office. Eventually, a top manager in the office sent a cover your ass email to Kamala Harris saying, hey, by the way, I think the head of this drug lab section is actually taking drugs and regularly violating protocols and handling evidence. Kamala Harris, instead of doing her immediate duty as a district attorney to inform all defense counsel in all the cases in which this lab technician had handled the drugs for testing, she sat on it for a period of 3 months. And it only came out not through Kamala Harris disclosing it. And so the judge in that case, Christine Mazzullo, excoriated the district attorney's office. Now, by this time, Kamala Harris had been the district attorney for 6 years. In the 6 years she was the district attorney, she created no protocol for disclosing to defense counsel this, what's called a Brady violation, a violation which is so massive that you have to disclose to the other side that there's been a potential due process violation that could be exculpatory. So she got in trouble for that. She went on after that, 2 years later, to become the Attorney General of California. So there's literally no accountability for, by some accounts, 1,400 cases, either convictions or pending cases, had to be dismissed in San Francisco because of this due process violation of the rights of the accused. I personally litigated a case against Kamala Harris myself, and
Really?
I saw the same pattern. So I had an important civil rights case involving a sick applicant for a prison guard job in the prison department in Sacramento County. Kamala Harris was the attorney general when this case went to trial, was getting prepared for trial. And I had won this case at the administrative level. So I was able to prove at an administrative hearing for state employees that the civil rights of my client had been violated because he was denied a job with the prison department because of his articles of faith. He had a beard, he had a turban, and under federal equal employment law and state law as well, the state has to accommodate that. They had to, offer him the opportunity to take a different gas mask test and prove that he could do the job. Well, I won that case at the administrative level, which should have been a slam dunk for the state to agree that he should have this job. Well, Kamala Harris fought that decision all the way to eve of trial. And I remember getting the United States Department of Justice involved in this case. And it was only after the United States Department of Justice opened up a civil rights investigation from the Office of Civil Rights into the state corrections department and how the state was handling this particular case. And after I got a national coalition of civil rights organizations, ranging all the way from the American Civil Liberties Union to the Beckett Fund, a conservative organization, so a whole panoply of almost 30 civil rights organizations, only when I had a massive press conference on this issue did Kamala Harris, 4 years into this case, finally agree to settle the case. So, and why would she do that? Well, the prison guards union, it turns out, only wanted accommodations for certain people, but not others. And they didn't want this newcomer coming into their ranks. So there was a blatant violation of my client's civil rights. But I finally won, but only after exerting outside pressure. And this has been her pattern typically. She's only willing to back down, not because she's wrong, but because she's embarrassed or confronted publicly. And even then, she's had such a entire career of faking her way to the top that there's just no shame there. And, she's willing to continue to lie until she gets
How'd she
caught.
get to be Attorney General of the state of California after failing as a prosecutor for San Francisco County?
Well, again, it's the machine politics of California. You mentioned Gavin Newsom. At the same time, there was consideration of whether Kamala Harris might run for governor. And basically in the upper echelons of Democrat politics in California, these things are all worked out in advance. Multiple people might want the job, and I can guarantee you that's happening right now in the case of Nancy Pelosi, who's, reaching the end of her career at some point of her, it'll naturally expire. But there's a lot of jockeying like that. Which constituency? Is it going to be gay? Is it going to be Asian? Is it going to be black? Who's going to get the prize? So it's kind of like that. So
that's all that matters, then.
All that matters is identity politics. So, at that point in time, she was a district attorney and she could have run for multiple different offices. Senate wasn't open at the time, so she ran for the attorney general position. And so despite this massive, and I could go on for hours, I have a dossier of horrific instances of gross civil rights and human rights violations that occurred on her watch. She had the resume and she had the powerful backing. And she checked the boxes of identity politics. First woman, first African-American, first Indian-American. So she checked those boxes. She ran. Now, she ran against a highly competent, seasoned district attorney of Los Angeles County, Steve Cooley, who I consider a friend and who's been a fellow warrior in the pro-life movement with me. Steve Cooley ran the strongest campaign that year of all the campaigns, and he narrowly lost by just a handful of votes. He was winning on election night. This is a familiar story to people who've been watching elections recently. He was winning on election night, and then in California, we don't have election day. We have election 2 months. People are able to vote for 30 days before the election, and then they have 30 days to count the votes. In Florida, by the way, they typically announce the results of an election on election night, like in civilized countries. But in California, we don't do that. So,
because that just makes it easier to cheat.
Easier to cheat.
Yeah.
100%. So she won extremely narrowly. I think it was like 2,000 votes statewide in a state of 40 million people. She won extremely narrowly, and she won weeks into the election counting, ballot counting period.
I think we can maybe not prove, we can assume cheating.
That was certainly suggested. I can't prove it today, but I can say that when you're talking about a single party state, machine politics, differential application of safeguards on how votes are counted, like some counties match the signatures, some counties don't bother to do that, even though that's required under the law. Some counties look the other way on irregularities on things like, is the ballot dated? Some don't. Some counties, Los Angeles County is a prime example, have over 1 million voters on the voter rolls at that time who were not entitled to be on the rolls. Dead, having moved, multiple registrations.
Over 1 million?
Over 1 million. A 2017 settlement after a lawsuit by Judicial Watch in Los Angeles County showed that in Los Angeles County alone, there were over 1 million people on the rolls who should have been removed. And they entered into a settlement. And I think 4 years later, they still hadn't removed those people
crazy
from
time.
the voter rolls. And so when you have a state, you add COVID to that. So 4 years after 2017 is COVID, and you start having all mail voting because of COVID. Suddenly, there are 1 million extra
all
ballots.
All mail, not the Saudi kind of all mail, but M-A-I-L.
M-A-I-L.
By mail.
Ballot, a mail ballot voting.
Because all mail voting would not allow Kamala Harris to be elected.
That's correct. That's correct. So in our system there in California, which, by the way, has now become the national system by default because crazy California politicians are now running the country in many ways, or seeking to run the country, it's a very dangerous situation for election integrity. And the person seeking the top job in the United States got her start with campaign and election violations, got away with it, has won elections while getting away with it, and is now seeking that top job. So if anyone thinks that she would qualm or have any second thoughts about violating the law to get what she wants, she's done it many times in her career.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.